$3.90 per kg is not good news for dairying, but I guess we've got to be resilient.
That's exactly right, Rob, and I think it wasn't unexpected that there was downward pressure on the milk price, and we're really back to just above where we were in August, of course, when the forecast back then was $3.85. So a little window of optimism in between, but this will see farmers back to re-looking at those budgets again and just looking at what cash flow looks like over the next 12 to 18 months.
Now, banks, everybody's sort of starting to say that the banks are likely to put steel cap boots on, but that's not necessarily the case.
No, I think banks will continue to work one-on-one with farming businesses, and that does mean that there'll be some tough decisions to be made by farmers on their own businesses, and that's already been the case in terms of looking at costs, looking at farm operating systems, really what tools and levers they have available themselves to be able to have their businesses survive this next 12 to 18 month period. Banks will have some tough decisions to make as well, and that is part of the business cycle. From our point of view at Rabobank, we see this as being part of an agricultural cycle, and it's not an unusual one. What is slightly unusual or different about this one is just the length of it. But we know that agricultural markets are volatile. We also know that we see these supply and demand cycles come and go, and this isn't too much different from ones we've seen in the past.
I mean, it wasn't that long ago that lamb was getting about $12 a head, and everybody weathered that one.
Yeah, it depends on your time horizon, of course, and it doesn't make it any easier for those going through the trough in the cycle, which is where we're at the moment. Probably also not helped by the fact that we do have, a generation of farmers that haven't really experienced the downturn that older farmers might remember during the 1980s or in the early part of the 1990s that was extremely tough. And New Zealand came out the other side of that very efficient and very competitive as a result. I think we're facing a similar challenge now, and I'd encourage that people do look at what we come out the other side looking like, which, if that can be more efficient, can be more competitive, and perhaps a bit tougher out that other side, then I think we will have weathered the storm fairly well.
Now, interest rates are low, and that's got to help.
That is certainly a saving grace. The economic environment we're in globally at the moment is increasingly uncertain. We've seen that since the start of the year. Financial markets are reasonably nervous, and that uncertainty is starting to be factored in. But here in New Zealand and in our near neighbours Australia, we are at a low point in the interest rate cycle, and that is helping compared to, again, if I refer back to the 80s and 90s, that wasn't the case, which was added pressure that isn't there at the moment.
Low 20s in those days.
Absolutely, and so that's a pressure that's not there now, but needless to say, there's still plenty of other pressure on cash flow and on businesses, particularly those that have increased debt levels more recently or have undertaken expansion or development more recently, tends to be where the pressure's greater.
It must be tough for somebody who looks at their budget every 2 weeks or monthly and they say, well, I'm just not going to get enough to service things. I mean, it must be hard when you go on a one-to-one and say, where are we at?
Yeah, look, it's these are tough discussions, and undoubtedly there's a fair amount of stress out there. So we do need to acknowledge that. I think what I would encourage those people to do, and certainly what our people are doing, is looking at the resources available. We've seen some great work in the last 6 to 12 months, in particular from Dairy NZ, from organisations like the Rural Support Trust, to put together tools and discussion points that people can use in their businesses, and encourage them to have that discussion with their professional advisors, with family and friends where necessary, to just look at what options might be out there. It's often difficult when you're looking at your own business to really understand what other people might be doing and starting to think creatively.
And don't sweep it under the carpet.
Absolutely not. That really can be the worst thing in terms of the isolation that brings, but also not being able to move forward. So we do encourage people to keep talking to those that are out there. And reach out to neighbours and others in the community, because everyone's in the same boat pretty much, and there are some good resources and good experiences from past downturns that we can learn from.
But we're not good at it, are we?
It's human nature, I think, Rob, that it's often easier to keep things to ourselves. I think we all do that.
It'll go away.
Well, not so much that, but just, we tend to think we can sort it out ourselves, or that, for some reason there might not be any other options out there. But, I think most do have options, and I think most of us can learn from someone else and what they've been through.
It's not being able to see the wood for the trees, which is a very old saying, but it's still very accurate, isn't it?
Look, it is still very accurate, particularly given the longevity of what we're in at the moment, that it's very easy to stay focused on the day-to-day and the minute detail of what's going on. But to look around and actually see what others are doing can actually be a breath of fresh air, and may not want to copy exactly what they're doing, but may provide some ideas of other options.
And briefly, the other sectors all seem to be doing okay.
Yeah, it is a mixed bag. I think we can learn from those in other sectors, such as, kiwifruit, who had their own issues with PSA, and looking at how that sector's rebounded out of that. We also see sectors like the pipfruit sector, who've had a very long period up until a couple of years ago where it was extremely tough, and again enjoying some good market returns now. Not to mention beef, similar scenario. So it's not that we don't see this happen in other sectors. We tend to focus on the here and now rather than looking at how do we come out of it stronger.
So the big word, the catchphrase is talk to your professionals.
Absolutely, and talk to others around you that can provide whatever support's required.
Even though you may not think there is an out, there is.
Yes, and look, the thing about markets is that they do recover and rebound. We're never sure of the exact timing or magnitude, but what goes down tends to come up again as well.
Hayley, thank you very much indeed.